Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus told a parable to his disciples. Can one blind man guide another? Surely both will fall into a pit. The disciple is not superior to his teacher. The fully trained disciple will always be like his teacher. Why do you observe the splinter in your brother's eye and never notice the plank in your own? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take out the splinter that is in your eye," when you cannot see the plank in your own? Hypocrite, take the plank out of your own eye first, and then you will see clearly enough to take out the splinter that is in your brother's eye. There is no sound tree that produces rotten fruit, nor again a rotten tree that produces sound fruit. For every tree can be told by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorns, nor gather grapes from brambles. A good man draws what is good from the store of goodness in his heart. A bad man draws what is bad from the store of badness. For a man's words flow out of what fills his heart. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
As I'm sure most of us are aware, this Wednesday is Ash Wednesday. We begin Lent on Wednesday. Of course, there'll be a Mass in the morning and a Mass in the evening. The evening Mass is 7:30. It's not a holy day of obligation, but it's still good to try to get to Mass for the beginning of Lent, to receive the ashes, of course. Every Lent, of course, we are reminded by the readings, which will come on Wednesday and be repeated again during the Sunday reading cycle, to undertake a time of penance as we prepare for Easter. And the penances and the sacrifices that we undertake are done for a specific reason. They are in order that we can come to live the Paschal mysteries more deeply by being a closer friend of Christ. The growth that we wish by undertaking the sacrifices and penances, fastings, extra prayer, extra works of charity, giving alms, they are ordered to help us grow. It's the whole point of Lent, is that we enter a period of growth by entering, in a way, a self-disciplined time, more voluntarily, more lovingly. 40 days, as we well know, imitating the Jews, 40 years in the desert, but most of all, taking our cue from Christ, who spent 40 days himself in the desert, stripped away of what ordinarily he might be relying upon in his humanity, fasting on bread and water, and there searching more deeply to be intimate with God, his Father, which, strictly speaking, Jesus doesn't need. He's always has the same intimacy as divine Son with his divine Father, and his humanity is always caught up in that to the most preeminent level possible. But he sets example for us that in our journey there must be times where we enter retreats, We seek God more fervently by setting aside certain time periods. And there, the liturgy, the church has developed her time structure of prayer, having one of these periods as we lead in to celebrating Easter. So we prepare well and we are more stripped away of the things we would ordinarily rely upon, so that we grow in grace, so that we come closer to the Lord. Lent, first of all, is not about doing special sacrifices, so I'm the better man or the better woman. It's not ordered at that level, first of all. It'll have that secondary effect, no doubt. But it is done so that we are purified in our humanity at various levels to be far more open spiritually and step into that spiritual growth. Because it is possible to undertake fasting and sacrifice and not make any progress in the spiritual life. And then it's useless, really. And it might dangerously be serving our spiritual pride. We pat ourselves on the back and say, I did a good Lent. I achieved all of the norms, tick, tick, tick. That's what I was sitting down to do. And we might have even missed doing it with charity. We might have missed doing it in order that we step into deeper spiritual union with God. And there it's useless. In fact, it will probably serve our own ego more than anything else. So there, it's a healthy reminder as we head towards Lent to make sure that we've got things in the right order. We must undertake these things, first of all, out of love of God, because we want to grow and be more pleasing to the Lord in our soul and in our life, our Christian life. And the practices, we know them. More fasting, more prayer, and more almsgiving in various ways to combat the weaknesses that have come to us because of original sin, pride, vanity, disordered sensuality. We'll look at those in the coming weeks, how those things are structured. To combat our reliance on created things. To be more spiritual and open, as we have mentioned. Fasting. In the Middle Ages, they used to fast the entirety of Lent from all dairy and from all meat. Basically lived on vegetables and bread. And so this is where the whole tradition of Easter eggs comes from. We know that as well. And then the decorating of the eggs to celebrate that finally we can return to having dairy and enjoying those things. But of course, we don't do a lot these days, which is not great, to be honest. It's not good for us that we hardly fast at all, we hardly sacrifice at all, we hardly abstain from meat at all. We tend to take the easiest path. It's always the way it works with human nature. The church loosens things up, gives us other options, makes it a bit lighter because she knows there are various needs today, and all of those have good reasons behind them. But as is always the way, we tend to fall into the easiest path because that's what the church has allowed. But I think certainly in Lent it's a time to re-establish good practices in this regard. Fasting can be done much more on a personal rhythm rather than what the church, let's say, lays down for us. And there each person has to find a way that works for their own body and atavism and their life and the work that they do. Normally, the fast that is undertaken on Wednesdays and Fridays in Lent is to have one full meal and two smaller collations they're called, which add up to an extra meal. And they're depriving the body of the normal sustenance that it's used to. And over time, the body actually acclimatizes to that and gets used to that restriction and actually helps the efficiency of the body. But there, it's a sacrifice to offer up to God in a loving way Some people do it every day. Most of us can't achieve that. But still something to consider, maybe on Fridays in Lent. And it used to be that way every Lent. The reason that we abstained from meat all the way through Lent in the past was because the monasteries learnt a natural wisdom in their practice, and there they realized that by having more red meat, there was more fat, especially when they're eating beef and those kinds of things. There was related to a higher fat content in their intake, in their nourishment. They recognized a certain increase in temptations of the flesh. The flesh was more alive, looking for satisfaction in impure ways. And now we've actually proven it by the science that we know. It's true. We eat meat with more fat content. In the fat is actually a higher level of testosterone. The increased level of testosterone, especially in the male body, gives rise to greater urges of those kinds. And there the monks were right. That's why they went without all meat through all of Lent to rein in those things. And there ate less fatty meat, which was fish. They also did it because, yes, in those days, meat was expensive, fish was cheaper. It's the other way around now, of course. And they did it, yes, if it was on Friday, out of respect for the Lord shed his blood on Good Friday. But the primary reason was recognizing that those higher fatty substances produced problems when they were wanting to live chastity well, temperance, continence, and celibacy. Now that's a wisdom we should all imbibe, because we have very, very lavish diets today. We eat like kings compared to the past. When we walk into a supermarket, the incredible quantity and variety of food. We live of a superabundance that is unparalleled in the history of the world. For most people in a Western society like ours. And there we should always be aware of that we have such lavishness in the way that we have access to such food. And there is a need, I think, to rein in the things that we take with a Christian discernment in terms of chastity and temperance. It's the same with lots of spicy food, lots of pepper and other things in our food, especially for Westerners who don't grow up in that way. It gives rise to further temptations in the flesh. It's one of the wisdoms of the European monasteries to rein back those kinds of spices because it enlivened things. So there we also can learn from that, undertake also those sacrifices and denials in our own personal way. Fasting, when it is asked of us, and it is asked of us on Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and Good Friday, they are the only 2 days left in the church's year compared to the entirety of Lent and every Friday in the past. We only have 2 days left in the whole year where we are mandated by law to fast and abstain from meat. So, when we are mandated by law, it only applies to those, this is when we're fasting, those who are 18 and over and under 60. Between 18 up to 60, the law applies to us. If we are children, we're not bound by law to fast. And if we are above 60, we are not bound by law to fast. But we can choose to do so out of love for Christ. The church is just being intelligent as a mother to not bind people when they are minors and it's up to their parents and they might have other things, growth going on. needing energy, and if we are elderly. Of course, if we are sick and have a chronic disease of some kind, we are also not bound to fast to the same degree, and that applies to pregnant women. And there, the church wants us to be intelligent in the way that we fast. Sometimes people can be a bit excessive and think, right, I'm going to do bread and water for the entirety of Lent. They make it through maybe 10 days and then collapse, and there it's not a good idea. What we're looking to do is not achieve some great, enormous quantitative sacrifice. That's not the measure of our sacrifices to God. What is important in the eyes of the Lord is the love, the charity with which we offer the sacrifice, be it abstinence, be it fasting, be it any other penance. It's not the quantity that matters to God, not the size of the sacrifice, but the love with which we offer the sacrifice. And St. Paul makes that so clear. We could give up our body to be burned in martyrdom, and if we do it with no love, it profits us nothing at all, and further could well be motivated by spiritual pride, and thereby is due to our detriment. So nothing has value if it's not done with a genuine love for God. And there we have to do the discernment. Am I doing this to satisfy my program, my ego, my self-satisfaction in achieving some end and thing that I want to feel good about? Or is it me pleasing God and feeling good about pleasing God by the gift of love that I make towards Him? And that's something we can ask the Holy Spirit to help us be, true and authentic and genuine in, be full of light under God in that regard. Abstinence. Everyone is bound to abstinence when the church mandates it, who is above 14 years old. That's the law of the church. So if we're above 14 all the way to death, when the church mandates the non-eating of meat, which now is only Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, we have to undertake it to obey the church, because she binds us as a mother does in certain circumstances for our good. But of course, every Friday in Lent one could do that. Many people still do it every Friday throughout the year. But the New Zealand bishops have loosened that obligation on a Friday throughout the year, and still in Lent. That might change in the future, such that if we do eat meat on a Friday, we must choose some other penance to offer, because Friday every week of the year is still a day of penance in the church's cycle, except octaves, when we are celebrating a solemnity and any other solemnity. So the Friday within Easter week, Friday in the octave of Christmas, some other solemnity falls on a Friday. It's no longer a day of penance, and we should not fast, and we should not abstain. We have to learn to let go of our will in the matter and celebrate Christ's will in the liturgical rhythm of the church. Because sometimes you find that person feels good, I've made this promise to God, even if it's a solemnity, I'll still abstain, I'll still fast. But it's not about doing our will in the matter. It's about following the will of Christ given to us in the liturgy of the church. And there, when the church celebrates a feast and solemnity of Christ, we also should celebrate. We should then give up the penance and then celebrate with modesty, with temperance, with sobriety, of course, but we celebrate nonetheless. And there it's about stepping in to the liturgical rhythm and wisdom of the church. But nonetheless, when it is a day of penance, yes, we should look to make some penance every Friday if we don't abstain from meat, which some people still choose voluntarily to do. Good. And the church is not just giving way to laxity by doing that, because sometimes that is a little bit the accusation. She's aware in the modern society there's such a variation in the kind of work people do, the kind of rhythm of life. She's aware that now fish is more expensive than meat, and sometimes 4 times the cost. So in order that people don't, use all their money on a Friday in order to avoid meat, they say, well, okay, if the only food you've got and the poverty in which you exist is to buy the cheapest mince because that's all you can afford, find something else by which you offer penance. It's the wisdom of a mother that understands. There's so many children with various needs in the church. She adapts and makes it more flexible. But as I mentioned, we tend to find the easiest route by human nature and give ourselves always the way out. And we pamper ourselves well in the modern world, me included, from time to time. We find relaxation all the time and recreation. Lent is a good invitation to come forward into a more disciplined practice for the Lord so that we grow. So let us put ourselves under God. Let us pray and say, Lord, what do you ask of me this Lent? What is it that I'm attached to? What is it that gets in the way of my life with you and my relationship with you? Some, it might be overuse of the internet, social media. Others, it might be, like we heard, in the readings this morning, the use of the tongue and not being able to rein it in. And that's an excellent sacrifice also to add to the more material fastings and abstinences, to look to undertake as a penance. Lord, help me to hold my tongue. Help me to learn the virtue of modesty in that regard, so that I don't overspeak, that I don't just babble rubbish all the time, that I am careful not to use my tongue in gossip, in detraction, in defamation, in calumny, that I am careful to uplift people with my tongue and encourage them to be holy, etc., etc. In fact, the first reading implies that the measure of a person is what we hear coming out their mouth. There's a lot of truth in that, and there we should ask God to help us in terms of our examination of conscience in this regard. In the coming weeks, I'll talk about the other things, our extra prayer for Lent, our almsgiving, and the other dispositions which are helpful. Let us put it before the Lord. Lord, I want to live this Lent differently again. I want to live it well. Lord, give me light in the days that come. What is it that you ask of me to sacrifice and to give up? It might be something very small, or it might be something more substantial. But Lord, whatever I choose, help me to be consistent, to be constant, to be determined, to be perseverant. And Lord, most of all, help me to do it out of great love for you, offering it to you, so that I'm purified and come closer to you in the process. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.